Find my.
Can you hear me?
Oh my goodness. Put you on now.
Hi, David.
On mute.
Hi, Teresa. Hi, Ricky.
That is exactly the type of house I thought Janet would live in.
Yeah, I've even got my washing hanging up. I should get the background. Yeah. You can't see the washing hanging up so easily. Kath, are you there? Oh. I assume before I start I should get everybody to mute their microphones while I'm talking and then unmute them when I've finished so we can have a general discussion. Okay. I'm going to start. For some reason, the GoToMeeting screen looks completely different from what it has before. So I just hope that, I know what I need the chat box so I can find out if things are going wrong. Can I make you the presenter? I shall try. Okay, I've made you the presenter, Steve. Steve, I can't hear you.
That's because my mic was muted.
Ah, right. Are you chairing this then?
No, I just clicked the wrong button by mistake.
Oh, so you don't want to be the presenter?
Not at all.
Okay, give me the presentership back then.
I don't know how to do that.
You go down to your name. No, sorry, you go down to my name and you click on the thing to the right and say, make me, yeah, right click and say, make me presenter.
Okay. First I've got to find your name.
On the list.
Yeah.
Anna, I've just done it. It's Rob.
Hi, I've got the chat board up now. I'm ready to go. Okay. Hi, Rob. Okay, folks, I'm going to put my screen on. Can you still hear me all right?
We can hear you and we can see your slides.
All right then. While I've got the slides on, I can't see anything in the chat. So I'm just going to go straight on through the slides unless somebody actually speaks to me. And then when I finish, I'll be able to see the chat again. Okay? So, this webinar is a chance to think about the different models of personal tutoring. And this is an entirely personal view. What I'm hoping to do is to stimulate your reflection and get some reactions. There isn't yet an accepted taxonomy, if you like, of different models of personal tutoring and academic advising. We might evolve one through this project. That would be a good thing to do. So, as I said just now, what I'm giving you is the results of my thinking about the dimensions of difference certainly in the UK. And we can think about how this relates to academic advising globally. I'll make some references as well to the webinar, which I hope some of you will have had a chance to watch, when 3 universities, Manchester, University College London and Exeter, presented their particular models, and I've put the reference to that at the end of this presentation for those of you who haven't had a chance to look at it yet. So the dimensions of difference I'm going to be talking about, because these are the ones that seem to me to be the most salient in the UK and perhaps the ones I'm most interested in. The first big one is about the focus of the role and the boundaries of the role. I didn't know how to split that up into 2 separate things because they're so intertwined. But basically what I'm talking about there is the role meant to be about helping students make academic progress, tracking their academic progress, mentoring them, if you like, as a developing learner within the discipline? Or is it more holistic? Is it about their entire personal development? And that would importantly, in the UK at the moment, include developing their employability. And those of you who've seen the webinar will know that University of Manchester explicitly includes some responsibility within the academic advisor role for helping students develop their employability. Not quite separate from that, related to it, but a slightly different take on it, is whether the role is primarily a developmental role for all students, or what I've put in inverted commas, a remedial role. In other words, it's focused on the students that come with problems and issues, whether those are academic problems or pastoral problems. I'll come back to that division. Obviously, in the days of personal development planning, it was very much seen as a role for all students. And yet there is still this kind of residual sense, certainly in the student mind of many students, that you go and see your personal tutor if you have a problem. And if you don't have a problem, there's no need to go and see them. The next major dimension, and it's related to, all these things are interrelated, but it is actually quite closely related to the focus and boundaries issue, is who does it. And we have this long-standing tradition in the UK that academics do it, but increasingly there's a move towards it being a professional service offered by student advisors for whom that is their entire role, which is much more the US model. There's a lot of interesting discussion around about why in the UK we're so keen for academics to do this. And again, I'll discuss the pros and cons of that in a moment. The next 2 dimensions that I want to talk about in this webinar they're actually related to each other. They're a bit different from the focus and boundaries, although obviously there are intersections. One is this primarily offered to a group of students together or to individual students? And again, the traditional model was one-to-one, but in various ways universities have experimented with what I might call group delivery. That's certainly central to the thinking at the University of Exeter, that the tutor will see the students in groups rather than on their own. That is related, although it's not the central issue, to the final one, which I've called intracurriculum or extracurriculum. Sorry, those are ugly words. By intracurriculum, I mean, is there a module or a unit or whatever the institution wants to call it, which somehow carries the personal tutoring role or the academic advising role within it. Certainly in the early days of personal development planning, it was quite common to find modules which were about personal development planning. And that's a very different model from the idea that academic advising or personal tutoring operates quite outside the credit-bearing program. It happens possibly when the student requests it, or otherwise as a periodic but formal meeting, but not within the credit-bearing curriculum. So those are the dimensions I'm going to discuss in this hopefully quite short introduction. I'm going to try and keep it to 25 minutes maximum, so we have a chance to discuss. So the first one, academic or professional. And the way I thought that I would lay this out is in terms of pros and cons. And obviously, I could have had 2 slides for each one, the pros and cons of academic and the pros and cons of professional, but they're pretty well the mirror image, so I've just done it for the academic. And the cons are in red and the pros are in green. So the cons for academics doing it. Academics don't have the time to do this. That's the age-old complaint, but of course it's got worse and worse in the days of decreasing unit of resource in higher education. It is difficult to find the time to do this. But linked to this, and probably more importantly, is the argument that many academics don't have the skills. And that used to mean they didn't have the interpersonal skills. They didn't know how to talk to students about anything other than immediately academic issues. So if a student came to see them about an academic issue and that slid into a personal issue because the personal issue was affecting their work, they would start to feel uncomfortable and feel that this wasn't part of their skill set or their role. As a slight extension to that, they may well also feel that they don't have the knowledge, the area of knowledge. So if developing students' employability skills is seen as part of the academic role, why should it be thought that academics know how to do this? Actually, University of Manchester have got a very clear answer to that question in their model, which you might be interested in looking at. Those are 2 big cons, so why should we think that it's a good idea for academics to do it? And for me, the number 1 reason is this issue of what I've called fostering a student's sense of belonging. And I've cited the Chickering and Gamson, the 7 principles of success in undergraduate achievement. The first one is about tutors and students meeting and knowing each other. That doesn't even necessarily mean face-to-face, because you can do this you can have this sense of knowing each other perfectly well in a completely online program. It's something to do with the student feeling that the institution knows who they are and cares who they are. And actually having a tutor who meets you and is responsible for you in some way and is there to respond to your needs seems to me to be the essence of Chickering and Gamson's first principle. of good undergraduate education. Less theoretically, perhaps, academics understand the programme and its requirements, and it's quite difficult sometimes to expect a student services advisor, a professional academic advisor, to understand enough about the nuances of the programme and the discipline to give really valuable advice. So this is, you know, it's still a very open question. I think the cons are very strong, but also the pros are very strong. All three institutions, by the way, in the webinar, did use academics. This is closely related to this. Is the focus academic or pastoral? And I haven't quite been able to do this as pros and cons, so I've done it as issues and strategies. But the issues, again, are positive and negative. Arguing for the focus to be both academic and pastoral, rather than either or, is the claim, which I personally would support, that you can't effectively separate these two areas. A student can come along with, inverted commas, pastoral problem. They've been chucked out of their house, they've split up with a boyfriend, whatever. And it's impinging on their academic work. Or the other way around, they come with an academic problem, and it transpires that one of the reasons why they're not operating successfully in terms of their academic progress is because of a personal problem that is affecting their performance. So it's very difficult, I think, to effectively separate academic and pastoral. This is despite the fact that many universities have tried to do this, and one of the ways they've tried to do it is by using the term academic advisor rather than personal tutor. And my own university, Liverpool, is one of these. Interestingly, I think the academics themselves go on operating as academic advisors indistinguishably from the way they operated when they were called personal tutors, which kind of, I think, supports my argument can't be effectively separated. However, the real problem there is, does any one person have the skills and knowledge to deal with both the academic and the pastoral? And of course, in recognition of that, most institutions that use academics and see this relationship have got this strategy that the tutor or advisor acts as a signpost to other services. So the tutor is, or the advisor is, the first port of call, but they're not supposed to do the whole job, which is great and sounds good in theory. I think the only problem for that, and this is why I've put it in red, is that it seems to me that signposting itself is quite a tricky interpersonal skill, because somebody's coming to see you, they've told you about their problem, you've expressed an interest in their problem, and well, not suddenly, but you've got 10 minutes or so to talk to them. And part of your role is to say, I'm not the expert in this, I think you should go and see so-and-so. Now, I'm sure that you can do that without the student feeling that you're rejecting them, but it's not unproblematic. Signposting itself is not unproblematic. Quite apart from the fact that universities in the past have been really, really bad at making the information available to their personal tutors and academic advisors about who to send people to. You would think this was easy in this day and age, but it's not straightforward. Some institutions do it really, really well. Some institutions do it really, really well, and others still do it quite badly. Okay, moving on to the last two, intracurricular or extracurricular. And again, I've set this out as pros and cons. So, if you have a module, let's say, which is called Personal Development Planning, or it can be called something that doesn't refer to what you might call developmental issues at all. It's more likely in many ways to be labelled as a skills development module. And if it is, you can link it very clearly to the discipline, which actually is a point I make lower down, so I'll stop there for now. So what I'm thinking about is a module which is either labelled something like personal development planning, or more likely these days is labelled something like skills development, or could even be labelled employability skills. The important thing about it is that it is within the curriculum and credit bearing. And one of the pros of that is that students are more likely to attend. And that's a big issue with extracurricular personal tutoring or academic advising. You don't always get the students coming and taking it seriously enough to make the time for it. And there's no sanction if they don't attend. So students are more likely to attend if it's timetabled and credit bearing and inside the curriculum. Negative, this is group rather than individual generally if it's inside the curriculum. And therefore it might be more unsuitable for individual reviews of progress. The way I have seen program teams get around this, which is quite sensible, is to have most of the sessions week by week as group sessions that actually turn one week into a series of individual review slots. So you're combining the individual review within the timetable for the group work. It does, of course, take up curriculum time, and some of the more traditional universities and traditional disciplines resent the fact that you give modules to something that isn't seen as being really pucker academic. That's less of a problem in other institutions. It does depend on the institution. I think, though, for all institutions, there's an issue that it might be seen as low status, which impacts on the individual who's responsible for delivering it. I have seen several instances of the tutor who gets labelled with or saddled with the job of delivering the skills unit as somehow being, ending up being seen as less a full member of the department, or it's delegated to people who are brought in to do it rather than full-time members of staff. On the positive side, and I was saying this, I started to say this at the beginning, so I'll say it again now, you can make it a focus on discipline-related skills, which could therefore involve the whole academic program team and motivate students more. And I'm thinking of a couple of examples from my own institution which were really, really successful. One was called, it was a first-year module called Studying History at Liverpool. And it was essentially a skills module. But it was a skills module where the students were divided into their personal tutor groups, and those groups were taken by their personal tutor who was a member of the academic department. So it involved the whole team, although there were some central sessions that were delivered by individuals. Of course, what that model doesn't address is what I've called the emergency pastoral issues. So the need for, when a student needs to see somebody urgently, who do they go to? Possibly they can still go to the person who's designated as the academic advisor and personal tutor. And I think it's a moot point, it's an empirical question, whether they're more or less likely to go to that person if the model is an intracurricular model. On the one hand, they will have met that person, they will know them, they will have been taught by them. On the other hand, they might see their relationship with that person entirely within an academic context and therefore be unwilling to go to them with what you might call a pastoral issue. Final slide, groups or final point, final dimension, groups or individuals, relates to the last one. And again, I've done it as pros and cons of groups, and you've got the mirror image if I'd done it with individuals. So for groups, it's a more efficient use of tutor time. And I can't emphasize enough how important that is. Of course, we're thinking about the student experience and enhancing the student experience, but there's no point in enhancing the tutor experience in ways, the student experience in ways that drain your tutors and give them no time to do anything else. Or even worse, drain some of them because they're the ones the students go to. So it can be seen as more efficient, and that's, I think, one of the reasons that Exeter has gone for this model. Peer learning. Students support each other's learning and development within the group, and that's, I hardly need to comment on that. That's obviously a good thing. And if they're discussing skills development, it might actually motivate them to have those discussions collaboratively. I've already said that because it's more likely to be timetabled, students are more likely to attend. However, it's not a suitable environment for individual progress reviews. I can't imagine progress reviews taking place in a group environment, although there may be an institution out there or a program out there that's experimented with that, but I find that difficult to imagine. However, as I said earlier, it would be possible within a group environment to turn a week over each term or semester to a series of individual progress reviews. It's an even less suitable context for raising non-academic problem issues, the pastoral issues. So again, although there's a lot going for the model of putting personal tutoring and academic advising somehow within the curriculum in terms of a skills or a personal development or an employability module, you do have to think about what you then do about the individual face-to-face time and attention that might be needed. So that's my personal take on the kind of dimensions that I've observed, particularly in UK institutions, and they don't easily split into different mission groups. It's not always the pre-92 universities that do it one way and the post-92 that do it another way, although there are tendencies for certain ways of doing it to be easier in different environments. They do seem to be generic issues, and there aren't any easy answers. So just to remind you, the webinar on the CRA website, I've given the page that you can find it from, again there, does give 3 examples, Manchester, UCL and Exeter, which address different aspects of those dimensions that I've just been through. There's also on the same page in the section below on support documents a really interesting discussion paper from Cathy Malone at Sheffield Hallam, which I'm very pleased that she's allowed me to share with you, called Approaches to Tutoring and Support, which I think is complementary to the discussion I've just been having. And it looks at different models, but it looks at a different way of categorizing them, and also has some really useful references to some of the writing on this literature. So I'm now going to come out of the presentation, go back into the general GoToMeeting page, which is now in front of me. So I'd like to open to discussion. Either unmute your microphone or oh, thanks for those references, Steve. Those are really useful. Anybody got any comments or questions? And you can turn your webcams on as well, so we can see you. Hi, Steve.
Jen, I've got a question for you,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I don't know why my webcam won't focus on me because I'm very blurry, but never mind. That is, the University of South Wales has introduced a scheme of personal coaches. Where would you put coaching into this model?
What do they do? Interestingly, Kathy Malone's paper refers to coaching as a particular model. I would want to know what the coaches are supposed to do before I could answer that, really.
Right. I don't know other than they're doing it. I'll find out.
I mean,
I'll find out.
Yeah, do. Coaching to me sounds as if to do with skills development, and it sounds as if it's appropriate to all students. So I would have thought it was closer to a PDP model, personal development planning model. But I also don't know whether coaches always work individually or whether they'd work with a whole group. And those to me are quite important dimensions.
I got the impression it was working individually, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like it, doesn't it?
I'll find out.
So, yeah, I would encourage people to have a look at Kathy Malone's paper because she discusses coaching and mentoring. Yes, that's a nice comment, Teresa, about signposting. I feel it's one of those skills we ought to allow academics to actually practice doing in role play, because I'm sure you can do it really badly and make a student feel as if you're not interested in them at all, or you can do it well and make them feel supported. I put some stuff up on, it's actually on that same page down at the bottom, on scenarios that can be used for role play. And please, everybody, if you've got your own favourite scenarios that you're willing to share, do send them in and we can add them to that page as resources. I think it's always useful to have good, interesting scenarios that you can use. Yeah. Yes, I think it's appropriate, Kathy. What I suppose my reservation is it's a very, it feels like a very one-to-one model, and it's whether whether we have the resources to do that. Yes, I'm sure Steve can get the examples from University of South Wales, and we'll add that to the website. Nobody willing to unmute their microphone.
Am I working?
Yes, you're working well.
I'm working? Hi. Yeah, at University of Lincoln we follow both the group and the individual model. So what we have is timetabled group tutorials where you meet with all of your tutees from a particular year group, and they're very much, they're kind of skills based in that sense, looking particularly at the kinds of things that the students are tackling, the kind of issues that they're dealing with, but really addressing certain things to do with the course and what they're learning and picking up any kind of shortcomings that they might be experiencing there and looking at employability, etc. Whereas we also have, and those group tutorials, they are 2 hours long and they get 2 per semester. When it comes to the individual tutorials, they take place at the beginning of each semester. They're about 20 minutes to half an hour long, and that it begins by looking very specifically at the feedback they've received throughout the course, though often it will lead to certain pastoral issues and the like. They often kind of come up during those discussions, and I think we find that balance of group and individual works really well. We've got a senior tutor system in place, and I'm one of the senior tutors, which is why I'm doing this. And one of the things that does come up time and time again, and you mentioned it in the slides, and I'm pleased that you did, is this question of employability, and not really feeling that as academics we're particularly well placed to assist students in that. And the point that I often make is we're often under pressure to do things like get our students to work on their CVs and look at what they're doing in order to get a job. As an academic, the only CV that I know how to write is for an academic post. I don't necessarily know how to get jobs in other industries. And so I think my concern always is, and one of the kind of drums that I keep banging is that feeling that once you are a tutor, that let's say the management can see it as being a kind of one-stop solution for all the problems, and so you become kind of a sort of a cul-de-sac role in which any issue that they want to address gets foisted onto you, regardless of whether you feel that you've got necessarily the training or the ability to tackle it. Yeah, that was my point really.
I think the model is really interesting, the idea, because what you're saying is you have both group and individual, but neither of them are, if you like, within a credit-bearing module.
No. The one difference is that changed things was that the group ones are at least formally timetabled, so they appear on the students' timetables, so they do go to them, whereas the ones that are one-on-one, we arrange on a kind of ad hoc basis in that sense, and often the attendance is a little bit ropey on those sometimes.
In that context, it's always struck me just how important it is. If you're having those individual sessions, yes, they should be focusing on feedback, and this is where the JISC work is really, really important, because I just don't think you can expect students to be, especially first years, to be organised enough to gather their feedback together and bring it with them. You know, if you have if you can use the technology to pull that together, so the tutor's got that at their fingertips. That's bound to make the process more worthwhile and efficient.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Sorry, had to disappear for a minute to get the
battery.
Yep, my battery's running down. Right, that's it. Can we do a vote on this system, Rob or Kath? I can't remember how you do it. Just wondering if Kathy has suggested a straw poll on who has a senior tutor role. Ours does at Liverpool. We still have a senior tutor role, despite the fact we call them academic advisors now. Oh no, we don't. Okay. Sorry, Kathy. We'll note that as a question we need to ask. But we need to. Oh, I thought we did have a voting system on this, Kath. Oh well. But yeah, yes, you're getting the answers in the chat instead. David's at Hull. Okay, folks, if nobody else has got a question or a comment, okay, not at Manchester Met, yeah, okay. If nobody else has got a question or comment, I think we could draw this to a close. It has been recorded, and I guess it's more likely for people to listen to it if it's a little shorter than the whole hour. So can I give you a last chance to put something in the chat if there's anything else that you'd like to discuss? Yes, and we can send the slides round as well as having the recording of the meeting on the website. So we'll put the recording under webinars, and I'll put we'll either send the slides round, or I'll put them separately under PowerPoints on the resources so that you can easily download those. Oh no, that would be silly, wouldn't it, Zainab? Because the references, they'd be on the page that okay, thank you, Kath. Kath has said she'll send the recording, the link to the recording, and she'll also send the slides around. So that's the best way of doing it. And Kathy would like some descriptions of senior tutor roles. So please, would everybody send in to your, probably to your mentor. I certainly collect it for my people. I'm sure Stephen, John and Rob will collect it for theirs. Anything on the role of the senior tutor, and we'll collate that and put that together as a document on the policy and practice bit of the website. Thanks, Janice. If everybody would do that, that would be really useful. Okay, folks, I shall draw this to a close.